Gidhaur Man-Eater. By A. Mervyn Smith. Most of those who travel by the East Indian Railway know of Similtala as a picturesque little station at the head of the only ghat along this otherwise almost dead level of a railway. From Gidhaur to Similtala, the line winds and twists over steep gradients, among low hills covered with scrub forest, which stretch away north and south as far as the eye can see. From Munga, on the north to Hazarabad on the south, this belt of forest extends for more than 200 miles. Its width is not much more than 10 miles. The scrub forest, between Gidhaur and Similtala, is infested with tigers of the most dangerous type man-eaters. More persons have been carried off and devoured by tigers between Gidhaur and Similtala than in any other locality of similar size in all India. Mention is made of this tiger-infested tract in the Anai-Akbari, the revenue collectors of the Mughal Emperor Akbar being unable to collect the land tax for fear of man-eating tigers. Over 300 persons are known to have been carried off by tigers in the country around Gidhaur and Similtala during the last 10 years. Skirting the densely populated and highly cultivated lands of South Bihar, this forest is resorted to by the villagers for firewood, and while engaged in felling brushwood and tying it into bundles, they fall easy victims to the tigers that abound in this jungle. Last year no fewer than 38 persons were devoured by one of these brutes, and so great was the terror he inspired that the woodcutters abandoned their calling, and the price of firewood went up several hundredfold in this neighborhood. The villagers subscribed a sum of 300 rupees and offered it as a reward for the destruction of this notorious man-eater. He was credited with abnormal powers. He was said to be many times the size of ordinary tigers, and to be beautifully marked. He was also thought to be mad, as he would wantonly destroy cattle, killing 5 and 6 in a herd at one time. It is well known that tigers, as a rule, will kill 1 or at most 2 of a herd at one time, or just enough to last them for food for a week. It does not matter if the carcass becomes putrid, as apparently the tiger likes his meat high. It is rare that the kill will last a week, as vultures, jackals and crows devour all they can during the absence of the tiger. The Gidhaur Man-Eater seemed to kill for the mere pleasure of killing, and on one occasion, he destroyed in the afternoon 4 large milch buffaloes belonging to a small zamindar, but left their carcass untouched. Human beings were his favorite food, and to get at his prey he has been known to stalk them for miles. Owing to his depredations, it was difficult to get cultivators to remain in the rice fields after dusk, so that much of the crops were destroyed at night by deer and pigs. The zamindar above alluded to, with considerable difficulty, managed to get a Cole, the aboriginal, and his wife from the Kharagpur hills to watch his fields by night. A high platform on thin poles was erected in the center of the field, and on this the Cole and his wife took up their quarters at dusk. The night being cold in winter, the pair had with them an earthen pot filled with fire, and a supply of firewood to last the night. They had scarcely taken their places on the platform before a large tiger made his appearance, and walking up to the makan began sniffing round and round. Apparently, he had not seen the couple, but had followed them up by scent, as he walked round and round the platform making larger circles in his hunt for the lost trail, and repeatedly came back and sniffed at the poles of the frail structure on which the pair were crouching in helpless terror. After a time, he realized that his prey was on the platform above, and rearing himself on his hind legs he tried repeatedly to pull down the shaky fabric, but the thin poles gave him no foothold, so that he could not climb onto the structure, which was just beyond his reach. The hours went by, and time and again he renewed his efforts to pull down or climb the makan. The moon rose late, and the occupants were in hopes that with the moon, the tiger would take his departure. The moon was in its zenith, and the tiger had ceased his efforts for some time, which emboldened the Cole to peer over the edge of the platform, when the tiger rushed forward with a fierce snarl and redoubled his efforts to climb the poles. Reared on end, the tiger's head was within a few feet of the trembling pair, and they could feel and smell his hot fetid breath as he snarled at the coals above. Fearing that the structure would give way under the renewed efforts of the tiger, the man set about, devising some means of getting rid of their dangerous assailant. His wife suggested that they should heat the piece of iron, which forms the cutting part of a plowshare, which they had luckily taken up with them, and throw it onto the tiger's face, when next he reared himself. The suggestion was good, and the fire was replenished with extra wood and blown to a brisk flame. Soon the iron was red hot, and when the tiger with open jaws again tried to claw him off the perch, the coal dropped the fuming metal straight into the gaping mouth of the tiger. With a fierce growl of rage and pain, the tiger rushed away, and crouching down among some bushes, he kept groaning in pain, and tried with his paws to soothe the burned portion. This he kept up till late in the morning, and it was only when other cultivators arrived in a body to reap the corn that he went off into the forest. None of the native shikaris would venture into the forest to hunt this brute, so great was their dread of his prowess. Even the few European sportsmen from Calcutta who tried to bag him failed in their efforts. The landlords were losing heavily, as not only was the royalty on firewood gone, but even the fields were neglected. One day a mild-looking native called on the zamindar of Sheikhpura, who was a heavy loser by the depredations of the tiger, and offered to trap him if he was given the promised reward. Eventually a bargain was struck that the man should get 100 rupees, and that all expenses of constructing the trap should be borne by the villagers. The man disappeared for a day or two, saying he was going to watch the tiger and find out its habits and the places it most frequented. On his return, he asked that a ring fence, some 20 feet in diameter, of strong poles should be constructed at a point he indicated near a watercourse. At one point the fence was open for about 5 feet, and parallel walls of poles made a passage some 30 feet long, leading into the ring fence. Within the ring, and near to the entrance, he constructed a huge pit 12 feet long, 8 feet wide and 12 feet deep. All the earth from this pit was carefully removed to some distance. Over the mouth of this pit, he pegged down a cloth of sufficient size to cover it, and over this he strewed leaves. Beyond this pit, and within the fence, he securely fastened a buffalo to a stake, so that it could be plainly seen from the passage, but could not be got at without crossing the pit. Before baiting his trap, he asked that no cattle should be allowed near the forest, and that the villagers should keep away, so that the tiger would be without food for some time. He then baited his trap with the live buffalo, and all went off till next day. It was found in the morning that a tiger had been round and round the trap, but had not entered the fence. The man was not disheartened. He said he was now certain of his foe, as the tiger was sure to come back if he did not kill elsewhere. A second night passed, and the villagers again hastened to the trap, and there, crouching in a corner of the pit, was a tiger of the largest size, growling and snarling furiously at the sight of his human foes. In rushing to seize the buffalo, he had to cross the pegged cloth, which gave way to his weight and hurled him into the pit. Immediately the joyful news went round, the villagers assembled in their thousands, and made the forest ring with their shouts of exultation and abuse of the tiger and his relatives for several generations. The magistrate was communicated with, and he thought the catch so good that the tiger ought to be sent to the Calcutta Zoo. There was no doubt it was the terrible man-eater, as the marks of the burn inflicted on it by the coal were plainly visible. The zoo authorities sent up a portable cage on wheels. An inclined plane was cut, leading from the exterior of the ring fence to the bottom of the pit, and the cage, with door toward the pit, was gradually lowered. On nearing the pit, the door was shut, and the men from inside the cage cautiously worked through the bars until the intervening earth was removed. On the barrier of earth being removed, the tiger rushed furiously at the iron bars, but the stout iron resisted all his efforts. When all was ready, the door was cautiously raised, and the tiger hustled with long spears. He made for the open door, which was dropped on his entrance, and the famous Gidhaur Man-Eater was now a close prisoner. Hundreds of willing hands took hold of the ropes attached to the cage, and drew it amid resounding shouts to the surface. The old women and the village children assembled in crowds, and throwing pebbles at the tiger invited him to come now and eat them. "We will singe your whiskers and burn your tail, you coward," shouted they. This was kept up till the Gidhaur station was reached, quite a multitude of persons joining the cortege, until the cage, with its contents, was safely entrained and on the way to Calcutta. Visitors to the zoo at Alipore may still see this dreaded brute, a label on the cage giving the necessary information to identify him.